please give a warm welcome to Joseph Lim and Dr. Vivek Balachandran.
Are we ready to go?
Yes, you're all good to go.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Yeah, nice to meet everyone. Thanks for attending my talk today. So maybe just a short introduction for myself. I'm Joseph. I'm from Singapore. And when I submitted this talk, I was a university student at one of the universities in Singapore itself. So this talk itself actually originated from a project that we did within university. And I think the main goal of this talk, not to worry, the difficulty isn't too high in terms of the technical difficulty, but the main goal of this talk will really to help you understand about permission abuse and showcase a process, an attack process that's maybe a bit theoretical, but hopefully that gives you some insight on a potential adversarial attack process, which involves stealing of SMS OTPs. Yep, so without further ado, apologies for any of the Japanese people here. Unfortunately, my Japanese is horrible. So without making a fool of myself, I'll do the talk in English. Many apologies. So, table of contents for today, what we're going to cover for today. First, we'll go through the current state. We will embed this current state in a storyline that I've detailed in the subsequent slides, which will lead towards the second section, which is creating the perfect environment. At the end of that, I'll show a short little demo combining the 3 different steps in section 2. And then lastly, I will cover a bit of defense against this, hopefully to kickstart any conversations that we can have about such an issue that I will be showcasing shortly. So, is this talk for you? Classified it into 2 different sections here. One would be security professionals, which I guess would be the majority of you guys. It would be great to hopefully showcase a little bit newer or undiscovered or different attack process, adversarial tradecraft, and maybe that's the way that we could implement a bit more better defenses against a theoretical attack like this. If you are not a security professional, that is fine as well. It would be great for you to listen to this talk, especially to understand a little bit more of the attacker mindset and how you could be a little bit more aware of your device and what you can do to ensure yourself as protected as possible. So this talk actually is not a solo project created by myself. This is my photo there, taken quite a while ago. So I look a bit different now. Hopefully not too old as well. Oh, Camille? Is there a translation? Hello, hello? Sorry guys, no worries. I think someone has to press start. Yeah, on the other device. Can someone from the team, is that possible? Okay, I'll move forward first. I think the majority of the attendees can understand English, so if anyone's in Japanese, apologies. But no worries, we'll get to the main content a little bit later. So, I was mentioning the content here is not really made by myself only. There's actually 6 other people in the photos above that made this possible, creating proof of concept code that we have uploaded for everyone here to try out later as well. So if I can name the names here, top left would be a guy named Zheng Yu, Samuel following on, Halida. The bottom left would be Jin Xian and Isaac. And then lastly would be our professor, which is Dr. Vivek, who kind of mentored us through the whole entire process of creating this research as well as the proof of concept code. And my university here, Singapore Institute of Technology, is where we created this research and made it possible for everyone here today. So, because this is an adversarial talk, I want to caveat a little bit here first so that I don't get sued by anyone later, that it's really meant for educational purposes. Like everyone here, we are here to learn, I hope. And that if you were ever to try the proof of concept code, please ensure that you have the permissions to do so. If you're using on your own device, if you're doing it on another device, ensure you have the right permissions, etc., etc. So, of course, want to highlight again, it's for educational and defensive purposes. Just so on the record, so I don't get sued or anything like that. So, starting off with the main content. Not sure if anyone can come in to start the translation now, but if not, I'll probably start it already. Hopefully, there's not many people who cannot understand English in the crowd. So here's the story, right? You're an adversary attempting to gain access to a specific user's account for a service, right? And you have already acquired the login details for the user account, username, password, email, password, etc. But when you're doing further research on this service, you realized that the service mandates the users to actually enable 2FA, specifically SMS OTP, to be sent to their device. And a little bit of a link there, I know it's a bit old, 2023, but that's 56% of people who responded said that they still use SMS TOTPs. So good thing is that most of the services that I notice now is moving towards more of like Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator, which actually solves the problem that I'm trying to detail in the subsequent slides. But if you're still using SMS OTP, this could be an area that it's of potential concern. Now, the target itself. I don't know this guy. I just took it off the internet or anything like that. But yeah, the target itself, the guy is using Android. He thinks he's tech savvy, but he's actually not really tech savvy because the next point here is kind of questionable. He loves to try apps from online forums, etc. And he also excessively checks his device other than when he's sleeping. And lastly, you are unsure of his sleeping type. So this sets a bit of our victim here that we're trying to target, which informs the rest of the presentation a little bit later as to why I set these conditions. So, because you're trying to steal an OTP, you know the guy is using Android. One of the most common ways to steal an OTP, in fact, it's very easily done, is to create a mobile app, right? So you have decided to create a mobile app as your means of attack. You create a really awesome app. As you can see, oh yeah, by the way, the image in the middle is actually hand-drawn by me. Looks horrible, I know. Yeah, but you decided to put in a bunch of cool, legitimate features so that your target user decides to install your application. So it means that would mean disabling the option in Android devices to allow for unknown sources, applications for unknown sources to be installed. Now, there comes the consideration of the malicious features here. You know that you need to steal an SMS OTP. So one of the easiest way to do it is through the broadcast receiver API to listen out for any SMSs that come in, and you can send it up to a C2 or anything like that later. But that's where this talk comes in, right? Is there any other things that you can consider adding into your malicious feature so that you have a higher chance of stealing that OTP and successfully conducting the attack later on? So now, let's swap paces a little bit. Let's imagine you're the user, right? On the right side here is a simulated example of a OTP message that you have received on your device. What are your first thoughts? So if I can classify this into 3 loose categories of thoughts, the first user would think, hey, this is just a spam, ignore, and maybe delete the message or just swipe away the message, clear it out, and go about their day forgetting about this OTP that came in. Another type of users would be like, hey, did I request this? They would think a bit deeper, but ultimately they would still choose to ignore it because they didn't request it, so it doesn't really matter to them. The last type of the user here is what we are trying to look at, whereby the user actually deeply considers, hey, did I really invoke this? Because if I invoked it, that means I've logged into my account and I'm waiting for OTP to come in now. But because I've received the SMS and I didn't log in, is my account hacked? So the first two types of users would be super easy for us to steal the OTP and subsequently conduct the attack of stealing the OTP, logging the account, and performing whatever malicious operations that we would like to do. But the last user itself would be a little bit more difficult. So let's deep dive into this last thought process a little bit more. So for the last thought process, we would first see in the message itself if whether I have an account with this company or software or service that I'm using. And if that's true, I will look at the time and see that, hey, I didn't log in and request a OTP in like the last 5 minutes or anything moderately close to when I received that message. And maybe the thought process could lead to, I might have just gotten hacked, someone have accessed my account through credentials, and therefore, right now, I need to actually freeze the account or change the password, things like that, because someone has accessed my account and invoked the OTP. And that's the type of users that we are trying to target for today's presentation. The users that are a little bit more informed or have a deeper thought of thinking about where did that message come from, where did that OTP come from. And if we are in this case whereby the user does do things that they have been hacked in some way or form, they might immediately access the account and then change credentials, etc. And then you have to restart the entire process again of gaining the user details, invoking the OTP, hoping that they don't see that OTP in order to complete the entire process of accessing the account, and then after that doing any of your other malicious process that you want to do later. Now, because of this thought process, how can we exactly do better to maybe possibly defeat such types of users, right? 3 ways to classify it very simply into 3 ways. The first way will be checking whether it's a good time to even perform the OTP invoking. So it means logging into the account and then send me an SMS so that I can steal the SMS later. Send me meaning to say the victim. The second way would be to confirm whether the OTP can be received by the user in the first place even. And lastly, would be to ensure that the device environment is prepared for the OTP to be received by the user. I'll go into a little bit more detail later as to what these mean. So for the first one, check if it's a good time. And what do I mean by time? You're seeing that is placed in quotes, right? Time here would mean is the user using their phone. So if you're on Android or even iOS, if you're using a phone and you receive an SMS, that huge notification bar will like pop up, like the message itself will pop up, and you'll be like, hey, I received a message, let me click on that and see what is it. We don't want that to happen when the user is using his or her device, right? So essentially, how do we determine this? We can determine it through finding out whether the user is using a phone or not by seeing whether the screen of the device is turned on or off. Yeah, and there's a little bit of a code on the bottom left itself to show you guys that it's really simple to do. You just have to query the context power service and you would know whether the device screen is on or off, right? And this is another one that, another image to showcase the information being sent to like simulated C2 that we have. And then the UID is that long bunch of text on the right. The second one would be confirm if it's possible, the OTP invoking and the user can receive the OTP if it's possible or not. So why is this a concern? If the recipient's device doesn't have cell signal at all, he or she, if they receive a message, the SMS, will be actually stopped at the SMS center, and only when they receive or have signal again would the SMS be sent to the recipient's device. And we don't want a case whereby the user doesn't have a cell signal on the device. You invoked the OTP. You also cannot steal it. But then when they leave, let's say, underground whereby they don't have signal and they come up to above ground and they do have signal after that, they immediately almost immediately receive that SMS. And you don't want that to occur because there's a high chance that they may be using their device at that time. And I think you can see where I'm going with that. So, so showcasing that if the recipient has cell signal, the SMS will be forwarded. And likewise, bottom left, you'll see, hopefully you guys can see the code there. Again, it's really simple to do. Just a couple of if statement checks sent back to your C2 itself. And again, another image to show that we can check it on the C2 end. Now, ensure that environment is good. So this part itself here is a little bit more difficult to do, but the thought process here is that the previous two checks may have been passed when you are doing your attack process. But the user may have their device in their pocket or on the table with, let's say, the notifications are allowed to go through, so they will receive like a ringtone or a vibration to it, and they may then check their device again, which in the spirit of this talk, we don't want that to happen. So how then do we prevent that? We can actually abuse the do not disturb functionality in Android devices, which actually mutes interruptions like SMSs. Not sure if anyone here has used that function before, but if you use it, you wouldn't receive vibrations or ringtones. Everything is muted essentially. And it's quite simple to do in terms of the code. Just that I want to highlight here that good thing is that Android is a little bit more secure than previous versions. So the do not disturb permission is actually a special permission that the users would have to enable later. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So another example would be that we can enable on the top right, if you see on the image, the do not disturb functionality, and that big message like SMS chunk that you see when you receive an SMS wouldn't appear. It would just be a very tiny icon if the device screen is turned on, or if the device is actually turned off, like the screen is off, they wouldn't feel the vibration, like there's no vibration or anything like that. Now, let's combine all these three thought processes together with a short demo. Yeah, so by the way, this demo itself runs on code that you can download on your own. I'll show the link later in the GitHub. So first thing first would be to check whether the user is using our device, screen on or off, which on the bottom left is our C2 server that we are running various commands to check on the device that the user has already installed, the application that I mentioned earlier. And then after that, they will check that there's a cell signal. And now we will we will set the do not disturb to be on. So now you can see it turn on, do not disturb on the top right. So in actual fact, when you're using your device, you wouldn't see like that red box there, right? It's just to make your life a bit easier. And then after that, you can invoke the OTP a little bit more stealthily. So we're using an example of a very popular e-commerce site in Singapore. So that whole message chunk doesn't come in. It's just a really small icon, but in a true test case, you would have the device screen off. And then you can log in successfully after that. So now, what exactly is the defense to this? We have talked about that thought process, but how can we really be more informed against such an approach? First would be turn off your device entirely. If you're not using your device, you won't have a problem. Just want to highlight that this is a joke. You can't really turn off your device all the time to prevent such an attack. But jokes aside, you do need to know exactly what your app is doing, right? The test case here relies on using an illegitimate software. But even if you do use illegitimate software, you just have to know, you really have to know what exactly are the permissions being used in that device, in that software itself, right? So I've listed them down. For cell signal, the permission would be access find location. It's a runtime permission. So that means that when the user opens their application for the first time, that pop-up will occur. Do you want to allow this permission or not? Yes or no, and then you press yes. For do not disturb is the special permission. So that's a little bit more difficult to access. And I believe Android knows about this issue, and therefore they classify as special permissions. So the user would have to go through like the settings page, etc., to click and enable do not disturb for the application, the software itself. Lastly would be screen on and off. In actual fact, for screen on and off, you don't need a permission. So if you were to ignore the D&D setting, right, the D&D option of this attack process, the cell signal and screen on and off steps will actually be quite almost sufficient for you to determine when is a good time to invoke that OTP, and maybe possibly even create like a profile of the user to determine when they are awake and when they're sleeping. And therefore, if they are sleeping and you invoke the OTP, you could possibly have a little bit more time to complete your all the malicious processes that you wish to do in the later stage once you have acquired that OTP. Now, the last one itself would be behavioral heuristics. So is there a way possibly for us to maybe on the service end, let's say if I'm a bank app, to create an, like, let's say if I know that the user only uses the app at certain hours, and suddenly there's an OTP request that comes in certain odd hours, and it has been successful, maybe we could implement additional authentication or confirmation to ensure that the user is really the user and not an attacker. So now, I've come to the end of the presentation itself. Not sure if anyone's like waiting for the code. The code is there at the GitHub itself. Please feel free to try out. Made by the team after about 3-4 months of work. It contains the C2 server, the application that is, has all the malicious feature, and on top of that has a like legitimate chat app that we created to masquerade all this permission abuse. And yeah, thank you for listening to me. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions. Thank you. Yeah, I'll wait in case anyone has questions. Okay, if not, thank you so much for spending your time to listen to me and my talk. Thank you, everyone.